Etherage, hi, my name is Sphinx. I'm about to talk about a subject that I have no credentials for talking about. That's a lie, I do actually have like some credentials. We'll get into that later. So today we're going to be discussing a subject that I would like to call jumping on a bandwagon until it ends up in a lake going downstream. So today we're about to talk about a subject that has been dead for a long time, and obviously people with much better credentials and like background and education know more about than I do. But I want to talk about it anyways because I've had this script forever and I want to talk about it. Today we're going to be talking about America's Next Top Model. And pretty much what we're going to do is I'm going to go and watch every single season of America's Next Top Model and judge it from a professional model actor who has also been educated and schooled and has done work. So I'm gonna tell you what it's like in the industry compared to America's Next Top Model. There's so many things that are wrong with America's Next Top Model, but we'll get into that. Okay, so the first topic that I'm gonna talk about, because I broke this like segment down and video into like pieces, is industry notes. And what's kind of like the difference from like America's Next Top Model representation of the industry and how like real industry typically works. Now here is the thing though, I do want to put a disclaimer. I know that America's Next Top Model is a reality TV show and that it's meant to entertain and not so much as like be super accurate, because let's all be real. If the show is accurate, it would be very boring. So I am gonna let like some things slide, but I'm still gonna tell you about them and like how they actually work. So the first thing that we notice, like literally not even 3 seconds into the show, is Tyra Banks stating that she wants models of all different shapes and sizes and blah 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 blah. Which is great. I would expect that means that she's looking for commercial modeling. Commercial modeling typically is a more wide range of modeling. It doesn't really matter your size so much or your shape, or literally, it's pretty much more for everybody. It's a lot easier industry to get into, not saying that it's like super easy, but it is a lot easier to get into. Commercial modeling is, as it states, what you see at Target and on like small, like local magazines, stuff like that. Like it's very commercial. But I guess I was wrong. Because she wasn't picking commercial models, she was picking more models within the high fashion portion. And high fashion is obviously a lot more competitive and a lot harder industry to get into. For crying out loud, like just the fucking measurements and everything to get into high fashion is terrifying. I'll read you the measurements right quick. If you have any body dysmorphia or anything like that, or you get triggered by measurements and stuff like that, this is your disclaimer now. So the female model must be 5'9" or 6 feet tall, and measurements must be a 33 bust, 23 waist, and 33 hip. There are also male proportions, but as we can see, this is specifically made for female models, so we will only stick with the female model proportion. As well, this kind of attitude of only fitting the high fashion status is kind of like gross. Yeah, I hate it. I hate it. Okay, so another thing that I found kind of odd with my personal experience and like other people that I know within the industry is like this interview process that the models go through during the semifinals. It's normal for you to go, like when you do an audition, it's normal for you to want to talk to the judges and the judges want to talk to you for a moment, but most of the questions are like your work, maybe like your kind of your personality questions. Like they're not really meant to be invasive or meant to be about your private life. They just kind of want to get you as a character and like your talent and your work. Not in this one! Apparently in this one, they were very much like, you know, really asking about your private life, and it was very uncomfortable. It's normal to ask questions like you would be asked in an interview, but it's very weird to ask questions about someone's like sex life or sexual drive. Like it's kind of weird, especially if it's not for a specific job of that nature. So, you know, it's weird, it's invasive, it was very uncomfortable to watch. It made me grossed out. I'm not sure if it made other people grossed out, but it definitely wasn't, in my opinion, professional to ask those type of questions if you're just looking for like talents when it comes to talent scouting. Another thing that like really pissed me off and made me super angry was that it was 8 weeks long. These women, these models, these talented young ladies had 8 weeks to become professional high fashion models. Now, for all those people in the comments who are going out saying, well, modeling is easy, all you gotta do is stand in front of a picture. Wrong. It is terrifying, it is hard work, it takes a lot more dedication that I'm willing to admit. That's why I don't prefer modeling, I prefer acting, but I'll do it. It's just a lot, like not even mentioning the physical strain, because these women did have a personal like coach who would work on their physical bodies and their images and their like aesthetic, they had an aesthetic coach or whatever who was there to make sure they looked the way they needed to do and how they shaped right, which is already very strenuous on your body physically to go through 8 weeks of just like intense working out and intense work like that. But also like just the mental toll. These women are in small spaces together for 8 weeks, which I get it, it's part of the reality show that you want that drama and that tea, but these women didn't have privacy. These women didn't have time to like talk things out. They just had to act in the moment because they didn't really have time to work things out. So this 8-week time period is just really gross. I just hate it. Another thing that was like kind of uncomfortable for me and the models in the show was there was a lot of situations and things that they were just very uncomfortable with and just didn't want to do, which is fine. You have a right in the industry, no matter what someone tells you, you have a right to say no and do what makes you feel comfortable and act upon what makes you feel comfortable. You shouldn't have to do things that you're uncomfortable with. And that's something that models and actors do have to like find out themselves, is what they're comfortable with and what they're not comfortable with. As well, if you have an agent or a manager or something like that, you can tell them, these are the things I'm uncomfortable with. These are contracts that I won't work with and stuff like that. That's the one thing that models and actors need to always be aware of, is their contracts and what their contracts hold. That's one thing that is kind of within the show, is that a lot of these women are very uncomfortable and they're being told they can't say no, that they have to do it. Which again, I get is reality TV, but also it gives a bad image on the industry, which the industry is already kind of but it already gives it a bad light that you have to do this, and if you don't, then you're just gonna fail, which is not the case ever. There are also like I kind of put like a 3-step thing in order for you to kind of conquer these fears that you might be uncomfortable with. One, you could just, you know, eventually just be like, all right, well, I'm not comfortable doing nudity, but I'll try it. You can do that, boom, conquered it. You can like kind of work, a second thing is you can kind of like work with someone and be like, hey, could we like do this instead? Like a nude suit, that would be more comfortable for me. I really don't feel comfortable like getting nude. I don't feel safe in this environment. You can work with who you're working with and you guys can negotiate on something for both of you. Or you can just say no and you say, hey, I don't want to work in this. I don't want to work in this environment, I don't want to do this. There is a downside to saying that though. Sometimes talents, agents, managers, whoever won't want to work with you because you don't want to do certain things that may be within your field. And that's fine. You have to accept that. You have to accept that you are not comfortable doing this and that you won't do it. And that you might lose some things because of that. But that is totally fine. You're gonna do great. Okay, so now on to like the cycle review, meaning like the season, because they call it cycles now. I don't know why they call it cycles. I'm gonna say something real quick, and some of y'all might get mad. Tyra Banks really isn't the bad one within this season. Like, she's not the bad guy in this season. It's Janice who is. Janice over here being fat phobic. She's over here just... Something about this season, which isn't a bad thing, obviously, it's just something that I noticed, is that it's very much going for the small town girl making it in the big city, which is totally normal for this time period. It was late 90s, early 2000s, where this is kind of like a normal storyline of some small town girl going to the big city and making it big or something. Now that the happy note's out of the way, let's get back to the negative stuff. There were like 3 overarching things that kept happening within this season that always had like some type of negativity attached to them. The first thing was the show was like oddly sexual, which again, sexuality isn't a bad thing. Being sexual and being yourself proud of your sexuality and how you present in a sexual way is totally fine and okay. At first I thought this was a little odd because their main demographic would have been cisgendered women who were found that like, oh, I want to be in the industry, or maybe even gay men, but having these women do very sexual things and be in a very sexual context was weird to me. Until I realized, oh, they're trying to get a male audience, which happens, I guess. Also, the show could just being like, minus the fact that it's very much, this kind of sexuality could be catered directly towards like a male audience. It could also be more towards like women accepting their sexuality, because it was the 90s and the 2000s where it was still a hard time, and still is a hard time, to be like, women can be sexual, they can be promiscuous, it's okay, it's normal. So that could have been a thing that the show was trying to project, is like, hey, it's okay to be sexual and do these type of things. Second thing, there was always this weird religious like thing happen. Like, I don't understand why it kept happening. Maybe it's just the times. It was the early 2000s and 90s, like I said. Maybe that was just a big thing with like religion and atheism kind of hit heads all the time. I don't know. It was just really weird. Third, this is a trigger warning now. Again, if you suffer with like an eating disorder or body imagery or body dysphoria or dysphoric, warning, I'm about to get into a topic that discusses these type of things, okay? So within the show, there's a huge thing about image and physical body imagery. Because one, they have a plus size model, well, plus size for the modeling industry. And then on the other side, they have a model who is very thin and very naturally petite. And they always like butt heads with these girls, like all the time. Because one of the girls, they say, oh, she's, you know, they're being very fat phobic, they're being anti like fat, they're like, oh, she's not gonna make it, blah, blah, blah. Then on the other side, they're being like, oh, well, she's too skinny, she obviously has an eating disorder, she's obviously suffering, and it's just like very weird to see that dynamic, which is something that happens in the world, is that people are like, oh, well, you're too fat, but you're too skinny, but there's no good in between. As well, these women are totally healthy for their sizes. These women are completely healthy. They've admitted to being healthy. One of them just, you know, eats a certain way, one of them eats another way, but they're both very healthy. They both live healthy lifestyles, so I don't know why that's such a big problem. But whatever. Another thing in the show that happened specifically within this cycle, it might happen throughout cycles, but there's something I noticed specifically within this cycle, that there was really no like makeup artist or skincare people who knew how to work with people of color skin and hair and like pigmentation and stuff. Like, it's just, I'm a obviously very white person. I have no statement on this matter. I did talk to some people within the community, and it is a little weird that there was no one who knew how to work with that type of hair and that type of skin and that type of like, you know, like they just didn't know how to do it, and it obviously had some repercussions. Now, this could be for money's sake. Maybe they just didn't want to hire a person who knew how to work people of color's hair and skin and makeup, or maybe they just didn't care. It's a high possibility, which I'm very disappointed in Tyra Banks, because she knows the struggle of being a woman of color in the industry, and she knows how hard it is to get artists to work with your skin color and hair. Now, I will admit, sometimes you just won't get a makeup artist, and that's fine. Sometimes you will have to deal with Miss Kathy, who literally only knows how to work with straight hair or knows how to work with like olive skin tones. Now, I'm not saying that every industry you go to, every makeup place you go to is going to have a diverse group of people who can work makeup, hair, and skin tone. Most of the time you won't. Most of the time you'll just get some generic lineup and you'll have to deal with it, which sucks, but hopefully the industry will allow more diversity within the prep stage before going on stage or going on a shoot. There was a, there's something I'm gonna bring up because it was something in the show that I found just like really unprofessional from a professional standpoint. There was a lot of flirting within the show, both from the models and the talent that they were working with. It was just very weird and very uncomfortable. It's also just extremely unprofessional. Maybe if you're like off shoot or off set, then yeah, of course you can flirt and do whatever you want. But while you're on the shoot and while you're working, because you are working, you shouldn't be flirting. You should be trying to be all cutesy bootsy. Even if you're married, doing that kind of just like breaks the professionalness of it all. Another thing that was upsetting that I think should be noted, though modeling, acting, and anything within the industry and the talent is very fun and you have a lot of fun moments and you get to have a lot of fun experiences, you are still working and you should treat it like work. If you are to eat a certain way, to like keep your body healthy and keep your skin routine nice, you should do it because that's what you're supposed to do for work. You can go have fun, you can go to clubs and stuff like that, but just remember, you're at work. Well, you will be at work and you represent your work and your talent. So don't miss work. It's fun, it's great. There were some women who did miss work because they decided, you know, I'm gonna do my hair and makeup before I go to the shoot, which one, you should never do. My final notes on the show in its entirety, it's actually pretty entertaining. The first season is actually really entertaining, minus all the hair pulling moments and the moments that made me hate myself. It was pretty entertaining for reality TV, which I hate reality TV, so you know, that's a thing. If you want to see more content like this or stuff like this, or just be a part of my channel, you know, do all the gross YouTube stuff, like, comment, share, subscribe, blah, 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 you know the drill. My name is Sphinx, and remember, fight the patriarchy.